we have Joe Schultz here from the Incentive team.
Joe Schultz
and
is.
he set up our camera for us, and it was like it was pretty effortless. So
I don't know, Melissa. We love you so much.
yeah, we love you, Melissa. Joe's pretty great. Okay, hey. Hello, loyal fans. We are live in San Francisco at the Chancellor Hotel, which seems to be moderately okay, but it is a government hotel, it appears. So we're doing, God bless our federal government. They're doing okay. So we are interviewing three companies today, or not interviewing, talking to three different companies today that have been funded and supported by our great federal government, the NIH. And we have Commander Michael Banyas here to thank for putting this together for us. So all of you all can see where your federal tax dollars actually go. So Commander,
yes,
please tell us about this special show.
So this special show is coming from JP Morgan Week in San Francisco.
You can actually hold it up a little bit. There you go.
JP Morgan Week in San Francisco. And what we're going to showcase today is a variety of companies that have received Small Business Innovation Research Program funding from a variety of NIH institutes, but all focus on health disparities populations. Just a little bit about the SBIR program. Across NIH, there's $1.4 billion a year that goes out in non-dilutive funding to startups and entrepreneurs from a majority of the NIH institutes. I'm in the Minority Health and Health Disparities Institute. We mostly fund services, digital health devices that are all geared towards helping companies enter serving on health disparities markets and overcoming those barriers, or have a focus on helping open up health and research access. And we've got three great companies here that will help provide practical examples on not only their journey of getting awarded SBIR funding, but also the great work that they're doing to help reflect the NIH's mission and use that taxpayer investment to help further the health of the nation.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's what I'm talking about. Also, just because we never introduce ourselves, we have guest host Leslie Kirk.
Hello.
Here she is. We have me, Kat McDavitt, regular host, and
Lisa Berry, regular host, who was not supposed to be here, but is here.
And so now you have three hosts. Well, anyway, okay.
No Melissa.
All right.
And no Melissa.
What could go wrong?
Dino.
Melissa.
Okay, no Melissa, but I don't know. She may have gotten replaced by Joe, but probably not. Okay, so we have our first company here, and his name's Charles. We're going to let him introduce himself.
So you just basically
because we don't know how to pronounce his company name.
Don't press the you're good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I'm Charles Gelman. I'm the CEO and founder of Hydo Health.
Hydo Health.
Yes, and pronounce it any which way you'd like.
All right. Well, we'll stick with what you said there, Hydo Health. Well, it's nice to meet you. So tell us what you do.
Yeah. So Hydo is a NIH funded company. So we received 3 different grants, 2 phase 1s and 2 phase 2s. And we focus on dementia and cognitive impairment. We enable patients at the home to care for themselves with AI robotics.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I just heard AI.
Lisa. I mean, tell us more.
Tell us more. Well,
yeah, what is an AI?
Well, tell us the whole. Yeah, tell us that, and then kind of talk about the journey. That sounds like kind of a big thing.
What was your journey towards getting $7 million in non-dilutive funding?
So we are very grateful and thankful for all U.S. taxpayers to fund
You're welcome.
our venture.
Thank you.
So thank you all, and thank you for the guidance. Michael has been instrumental to helping guide us through the grant process, because it does take quite a bit of robust detail and description in order to articulate exactly what you're doing. Because when you speak about AI robotics, you have to simplify it for people to understand. So it's like a miniature R2-D2 unit for the Star Trekkies or the Star Wars fans. And it uses Face ID, so patients can walk up whether or not that they have the memory, and it uses chain logic. So it dispenses medications at the right time, the right dosage, the right frequency,
wow.
and eliminate medication errors at home. And then we do video consumption recordings. So somebody on the back end can make sure that person is okay. And if not, then you can do a clinical intervention.
Oh,
and
very cool.
That is what we're scratching the surface on with the NIH funding.
That's amazing. So how old is the company?
So we're about 6 years old now.
Okay. Wow.
So what was your path to funding before, and why is non-dilutive funding so important? People don't really understand the difference, really. I mean, people hear about venture capital funding, other kinds of funding, but what does non-dilutive funding mean for a company like yours?
So we started off with about $1.5 million in angel investor funding. And that angel investor funding is a small percentage of company ownership at a future priced round. Now, non-diluted funding through the government is a little bit different. It's a grant funding mechanism where you have a defined criteria of what your research objectives are, and then you have specific aims to, milestones to go after and execute. And then you report back to the government on your progress, and then you publish it so everybody can benefit from that research and build upon it. And that's what's so fantastic about the SBIR program, because not only does the company benefit, but the greater public also benefits.
And if I could say one thing, NIH versus other places, we kick the tires. And one, if you apply to us, you're always going to get feedback from our review panels. But two, we kick the tires on your companies and your concepts scientifically. We're not looking to see what's going to be the biggest profit margin or the best investment. We fund the best science. And that's why you've gotten funded several times, because you have very good science.
Can you tell us why you chose to go this route instead of finding different funding?
Yeah, so we explored two different verticals. So one, the traditional path for a lot of startups is just chasing revenue at all costs. But if you chase revenue, you have to build a different type of company. And with medical device, it tends to take a little bit longer time to build, and you have to be very strategic because these types of devices have to work 100% of the time. It's not okay to go fast and break stuff, because now you're breaking patients' lives. And for us, it's mission critical that things are right, and they always have to be right. So I'd rather go the correct way, clinically validate everything that we're doing so you can help alter people's livelihoods and quality of life in the home. And that's what's fantastic about the NIH, is because they can enable us to do the right thing without having to go on the edge from a risk standpoint. Or if it was like a software-based application or a different type of company, they might be more appropriate. But for us, we have to make sure that this works 100% of the time.
And can we talk a little bit more about your company? So how are you helping with diversity and inclusion based on
Yeah,
the
so
fund that you're in?
with
What
the
did we fund you for?
Yeah. So we actually were funded for two different things. One was HIV research with minorities that also had underlying mental health conditions, and that was at Stanford. Yes, it was medication
Okay.
adherence. And what's interesting, and that was the research that we did at Stanford, is that the minorities actually gravitated more to our device because they felt like they were underserved and overlooked. So with robotics, what's interesting is that you have video messaging capacity, and they felt like we were caring for them more than they're being cared for. So think about folks that may or may not have a loved one. They may or may not see or have access to doctors and nurses. All of that can be changed and altered just by having a little bit of care.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have so many questions. So, because I mean, who you're talking about usually are the ones that aren't going to be able to know about your company. You know what I'm saying? There's such a stretch from, and so how are you guys overcoming that, or who is the pool that you're doing this research with? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we started with academic collaboration. So at Stanford, Rush University in Chicago, now we're expanding to UC Davis and other academic universities. But we had a small Medicare Advantage pilot in Monterey. And we started with congestive heart failure. And what we saw is that when you start looking at heart health is also related to brain health. So those folks often are not diagnosed with dementia or cognitive impairment, and they don't have anybody in the home to monitor them. So if you can alter their state based upon stabilizing the underlying disease state, you alter the quality of life. And so we saw an 80% reduction in hospitalizations and a 70% cost savings to the health plan. And that's what's exciting. That's what I believe we can bring to the broader market by helping people help themselves.
So I have a question about that specifically, because med adherence itself isn't new. There have been different, like you were saying, like app-based solutions of various types for years now. It seems like a no-brainer to me, but there's for some reason why it's not connecting through the broader health system and actually resulting in like the dramatic improvements in, hospitalization and follow-up care. So like, what is the gap that exists there, and how is HIDO addressing? I think that's like med adherence.
What's new?
Isn't new. What's
exciting
new about this? Why is it working?
Yeah, so what we're doing that's a little bit different is med adherence is not new. People have tried it the past 20 years caps, digital apps, medical devices. What we do is video consumption recordings and medication dispensing. So if you can eliminate medication errors at home by ensuring you press the easy button for patients, then you can solve medication adherence.
What do you mean by
So our device specifically dispenses medications
Yeah.
in a different way. So we have a patented technology with the actual physical cap on the pill bottle where it knows medication name, dosage, frequency, and count. So think of like a smart Keurig device. When you insert the pill bottle, the patient no longer has to use their memory to understand. It dispenses as the providers intend it to be dispensed. And that has never been solved.
Right. So we actually were talking in our Uber over somewhere, one of the 7 parties we've already been to today. And we were talking about like just friction points for patients. Like, I haven't gotten my dumb mammogram yet because I actually have to go somewhere and schedule something over the fucking phone. And then we went to the BARDA vaccine thing, and it's like, okay, vaccine patches are awesome. That probably will improve things, but is it going to improve things that much? If you like, what is the barrier to still going there? And it sounds like that's what you're addressing here. Can you talk more about just like removing friction points?
Yeah, this is so interesting to me because if you think about the amount of money that's spent on research and development and drug pipelines, you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, 10, 15, 20 years. These drugs work if they're taken. So why have we not supported patients in order to take medications the way they're prescribed? That has been missing in the market forever. But now I believe humbly, it can be solved. And once you solve it, you alter the state of how we even prescribe medications, because now you can track real world evidence by actually cataloging medications, outcomes, blood work. You can alter the way we care for people. And I believe we can shift the paradigm from keeping people in the hospital and the ER to actually altering their state as aging in the home.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a lot of the discussions about like hospital at home and community-based services, like this sounds like this is playing into that trend pretty hard. Awesome. What I love about your personality is your company could actually be terrible, but I believe you. Everything that you're saying, I believe everything that you're saying. I'm sure it's
Appreciate all the
I'm
support.
sure it's wonderful. It's totally great.
Not so good. Your personality great.
Y'all invited me. I don't know. I'm curious what's next. Like because obviously when you do an NIH grant, there's markers like you were mentioning, and you have to hit certain goal points. Kind of what is the next phase for you?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of elements that we've been discussing with our next grants. And what I find very interesting is the ability to unlock parts of the brain that we're underestimating people's capabilities. So when you think about people with dementia or cognitive impairment, what if there could be a device that's actually indicated for mild to moderate dementia? As far as I'm aware, the FDA has not formally approved a medical device for that capacity. So what if there was a robotic device in the future that had a formal FDA indication? I think that might be able to alter access and reimbursement to engage new patients in the market.
So that's pretty freaking cool. So question for you so a lot of our loyal fans are digital health startups, and everybody's like, NIH, the government, it's so hard to talk to them. But it seems like they've been a super huge supporter, and like one of the reasons you've been able to do what you've done so far. Can you talk to all of our million loyal fans about just like in general, like how NIH has supported you if you've gone on this path and hopefully toward commercialization, and what the benefits are there? Because I think a lot of people just like they see federal and they think the Borg are coming, right? Like just give us some more deets.
I think when we first initially applied for SBIR grants in the NIH, we didn't know the people. So it was like the big bad wolf. Like I didn't get to know
That guy.
Michael. I didn't get to know
You mean the commander?
the commander. I'm sorry. He expects a salute when you see him. But I didn't get to know them, but they want research to be successful. They want to bring new innovation. So I think it's about altering your outlook on why they want to do what they do and why they want to support small business and innovation. And once you start wrapping your head around that they want you to succeed and they want to see innovation in the market, I just think it takes on a different perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, just following up on your comment about dementia, one of the things that I hesitate to say that AI could help with this, because I'm really, really negative about AI right now. But
Skeptical.
I am very skeptical. But I do think, one of the things about people living with dementia is that they obviously, are very often living very much in the present tense. And that's really hard for human beings to handle because we have feelings about, let's say it's our loved one who has dementia. We don't want to keep repeating the same thing over and over again. But actually, there might be a role for, some type of AI like technology to support people who are constantly living in the present with reminders about what's actually happening around them. Like, can you expand on your thoughts about how technology could actually be effective here?
Yeah, what you're talking about is something that's very serious. And we see this a lot because we go into patients' home and you see the fear and the pain on the caregivers and the emotions. You see people like breaking down and crying. And it's real. And this is among millions and millions of families. And it's not just affecting the progression of the disease, but everybody that touches their loved one. And they don't know about the progression of dementia. So when you start thinking about rinsing and repeating reminders and rinsing and repeating and forgetting things and maybe taking medications, putting them in their pocket or putting them, somewhere else. It's a very real scenario. And
Losing your purse all the time.
Happens all the time.
or wondering where your keys are or whatever it might be. This is a reality for these newly diagnosed patients and their family. And how do you support family members to love their loved one, care for them, have their own lives? It's very, very complicated. So if we can ease the burden a little bit by maintaining some stabilization in their underlying disease, it just alters their environment in the home. That's important.
So how is your solution actually implemented in the home? You said you teamed with Medicare Advantage plan, you have a pilot. And I apologize for getting like so detailed, but like I care about like making money. So you were just saying like revenue is not great. That's what I care about. So like, how are you actually deploying this? Like, do you have like a whole clinical team that goes out, or are you leveraging your clients' teams?
Yeah, so there's two different scenarios. So revenue wise, there's a number of large enterprise payers that are very interested in what we're doing. Those are really focused on the special needs plans. And so you start thinking about chronic disease, dementia on average is about $300,000. So yeah, it's very, very expensive versus a very inexpensive device that's manageable. So we have looked at partner national organizations that can deliver the device, set it up, and then make sure that things are going okay and you can remotely monitor it. So if you're looking from a revenue perspective, this is a significant cost savings to payers in lieu of hospitalizations and ER visits. So initially we first deployed the devices. So I wanted to see firsthand how these families interacted. What are we going to learn? What do we need to develop? And that gave us opportunities to develop in a different type of way because we knew firsthand what was going on in the home. Yeah. And I will never stop going in the home until we absolutely get our hands around everything that's going on. And we'll always have a team member there because it's so mission critical.
Listen, I believe in too. I believe. Okay, so let me, budget operation over here. We gotta look at our time. So we need to switch over to our next guest. But Charles, would you tell all of our loyal fans, many of whom are in the same position that you were years ago before you went on this journey with the Commander and friends? So just like talk in general, like what would you recommend to people who are focused more on the science of things and not focused on getting venture capital and just running things till they're I would say until they're in the black, but it's till they get sold. So give our fans some advice.
I would say if you're looking for SBIR funding, please, feel free to reach out to the Commander or friends of the Commander because they are very friendly folks. So just even reach out to them with your idea. There's plenty of programs through the NIH and the government where they'll walk you through either pilot strategies or pitch strategies, just getting in the fold and really understanding the process. Just don't be scared. Just take one step in front of the other and then go see whether or not it's a good fit. But you got to try. You got to go out there.
Yeah. You got to do stuff.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm super happy we ran into you again. Yeah. And you obviously have some fans here, so we'll be watching.
I'll try to convince you.
We believe. We're ready.
Awesome.
Ready to go. Yeah.
Thanks
Wonderful
so
to
much,
meet
Charles.
you. And enjoy the conference. I hope if you're looking for venture capitalists, you find them.
That's right.
All right.
We are waiting for our next guest to jump in here, but what else
Yeah.
is going on? There's some news, some things.
Well, so one thing I think that would be interesting to talk about is, he was saying you guys are friendly over at NIH and but some people think you're not friendly because they just don't know. And something I do think is cool is you guys do get deployed out to some of these events where it's like easy to run into and have conversations. Do you want to just talk about like your approach to community outreach?
So most of my job aside from managing my program is applicant recruitment. And a lot of that is customer service. So I get applicants, we all get applicants, we all have different strategies, but one of which
Come on
is
in.
you got to be able to talk to people and you've also got to be able to help great companies. And that's actually a really good question to ask Kara, because she got help from both me and the National Cancer Institute on their journey, which they ended up getting funded at the end of the fiscal year. And she could talk about that whole process because I had to explain to her like pay lines and scoring and like patients. And they're probably one of the Kara and her partner Megan are absolutely fantastic and brilliant business people, and Megan's a great writer too. So
Awesome. So we are sharing mics. We're just gonna
Yeah.
hold it like this.
This is
There you go.
Kara, this is a budget
Kara?
operation. So
I've
yes.
heard it's very
Yeah.
cute. He was right. It's a very cute microphone.
Doot, doot, doot.
Introduce yourself. Great. Yeah, I'm Kara. I'm the CEO of Teal Health, and we're creating what will hopefully be the first FDA-approved at-home cervical cancer screening. So exactly right.
in.
Women here, right? Allowing a woman. It is. It's important for rural. Exactly. I don't like to leave my home. Totally. It's important for everyone. Right?
Order my
I mean,
wine
like,
online.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
keep
yeah, making it super easy for women to stay up to date on this life-saving cancer screening. So that's what we're up to with the help of the NIH and SBIR. And
So
you went through quite a journey. You went through quite
Yeah.
quite an application journey, and you came into it cold,
yeah.
I believe. And
Yes.
us and my colleagues over at NCI, you were very receptive to the coaching.
Yes. Well, we needed all the help we could get.
so tell us about the journey. So how old is your company? Like what?
Yeah.
Did you have a great startup story about how you almost failed? Just tell us all the things.
Well, hopefully we don't have that one yet. But yeah, so the company's been around since, well, I would say I met my co-founder in 2019, and then, 2019. Yes. And so we raised we sort of came together to kind of shape out what this could look like. And he had come up with a prototype, but it was rather large. And I remember just saying I'm just, I'm not sure, great idea, at-home collection, but maybe not that device, right? So we teamed up and we raised $1 million to redesign the product fully with a group called IDEO and just really actually I have it here. I brought it. I know. So the idea is exactly. Yeah. So it's much more familiar. Yeah.
Right now.
It's in the privacy of your home. Yes. Not the privacy of a public podcast. To each their own. But, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we're close enough.
Yeah, sorry.
So this is the device at home.
Yeah. So it's similar profile to a tampon. It's designed to fit, all women's vaginas. And the idea is you collect a vaginal sample and then you send it back to the lab to be run on primary HPV. Yeah. So you slide it up. Yeah.
Everyone who doesn't have a vagina, this is what it looks like.
Yep. Slide it up and then you rotate. Here you go. I can show you. Yeah. So you slide it up like that. You rotate 10 times. Mind blown. And then you slide it out.
We're not cool.
Nope, it's super soft sponge. Feel free to touch it. So it's very soft.
Loyal fans, you can't see this, but those of you that have had a real pap smear in your OB gynecologist's office, they kind of rip that shit up.
Yeah.
This looks soft.
It's soft.
It looks
It
soft.
doesn't just look soft. It is soft. You can touch it. Yeah, it's just a little sponge.
This is not our millennial era pap smear.
Exactly. So
Many women's medical devices are from the 1950s.
yeah, probably earlier. The speculum is over 80 years old.
Cool.
So, and it has a very kind of like sordid history of
You
coming
can
over at
tell.
the time of slavery. So it's not, it doesn't have, it's not great. It's not great.
Wow.
It's just another example of just women's health innovation. If you start to ask women, so that's kind of like what we did with IDEO, was just let's really include a woman into the design, into the journey, to just make sure we're factoring all aspects. So is it comfortable? Are you confident you're collecting enough sample? What about even when you get your results back? Do you feel like it's timely? The doctors are informed, they care about you. All of that stuff really matters in terms of getting screening out there. So
So what's the barrier to adoption here?
I mean, honestly,
Like, why doesn't everybody just want to do this?
everyone does. I mean, it's actually.
Yeah, I just want to be
quite
clear.
shocking.
Like, if this were an option to me
Yes.
available commercially, I would do it
Yes.
today.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes.
Just to be
I-
totally
yeah, so,
clear.
I mean,
yes.
Yeah, so we're not FDA approved. So the main barrier to adoption right now is getting through the FDA. But we have already submitted, and we received the FDA breakthrough device designation in May. So what's really nice is we have that. stamp. And I still,
Congratulations.
Like, look there, or look here.
You can look anywhere you want.
Thank you. Get that stamp of approval that they really know that this is important to public health. And then really most women are like you. So when we did our clinical trial, which was a 17 site study, 94% of women prefer it to the standard of care. So
shit.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's 100. Sure.
I have possibly a totally ignorant question,
Mhm.
but does this fall into the category of at-home tests? Because something that I hear a lot, and I personally have a paranoia about, is my data, and whether that is now in some void land that is owned by your company
Yeah,
that you'll
yeah.
sell to whatever,
yeah.
or how does that? Can you describe that? a
We're
bit?
all still reeling from 23andMe.
Right,
All of our
100%.
genes.
Yeah. So that's not our model. Our model is it's the exact same as if you did it in the doctor's office. So it is going into labs. So we're partnered with LabCorp. So LabCorp will run your lab test, and we send the results back to you. And we're not. Yes, and so we do have a provider network that we work with to make sure that it's easy for women to access. So once we're through the FDA, you'll be able to come to our website, like speak with a doctor, get the kit prescribed and sent, and then get your results reviewed by the doctor and communicated back to you.
Would,
all
would,
on
a,
the platform.
would a barrier to broad adoption be that regular old-timey providers, old-timey as in right now, today
Yeah,
providers, would lose revenue because they aren't testing?
That is like a perceived barrier, but what's really happening right now in America is there's just not enough preventive care. So 50% of US counties doesn't have an OB-GYN to deliver
Yeah.
a baby, let alone provide women specific care.
To your
So
point
there's-
about rural health.
Yes.
Rural health or even
Urban.
like women are, I'm sorry, but rural health or even women that such in like in Latino populations that are working all the time.
Yeah.
They don't have, or, they're taking care of their families. They don't have time to go into a doctor's appointment or be on the phone. Sometimes people don't even want to make that phone call. That's why at-home tests help, relieve the burden of the health disparity, because you're opening up access through infrastructure and knowledge.
Exactly. Like it's access to doctors, because a lot of times there aren't doctors, but it's also to your point, like access of time. These can be after hours. They can be in your car at a lunch break, right? Like it's just much easier to get the care.
I'll
right?
do it at lunch break.
She's ready.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that you could do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could.
You're not on mic.
I can do this right now.
We didn't
I can
do
do
a
this right
clinical site in cars, but we could add that to the
Listen,
next site.
listen. I have a question about the funding aspect of
Yeah.
this. So, you talked about how you raised $1 million to redesign the prototype with IDEO, and obviously have a design focused solution, which is great. But talk about the funding through NIH and SBIR. Why this? Why does it matter? What was the process towards getting that? Because this is like
Yeah.
you can see we're all saying like, this is amazing. This should exist.
You got a direct phase 2.
We got a direct
The
to
direct
phase
phase
2.
2 is like she skipped the phase 1. So she got a direct phase 2 through NCI, which has a very hard pay line, very low pay line. But essentially she skipped the phase 1, the proof of concept, because they were already there. And they got the 2 million plus. Well, you didn't get like the way the budget
Yeah,
worked. You got like
1.6.
1.6 to go for commercialization.
Yeah. So we were, as you mentioned, we take advice. I mean, I have to. So like my background is more in health technology. And so I partnered with, as you referenced, Megan, who's our director of research, and she's a gynecological pathologist, as well as Trina, who's our head of clinical regulatory and quality. And so they just are absolute superstars. And I'm always having to like seek out the best and, then work with them or get them to give me great ideas of how we get more funding.
Nice.
But so it was more about kind of really understanding how you run a clinical trial and really getting the support of the SBIR and NCI. I feel like for me, that's been like a really eye-opening experience, just how much credibility there is for that, right? So, I mean, I think you can go out and you can run your clinical trials. It really matters who you have. We had 17 different sites, all of which are exceptional, but just having more stamps of approval of people looking at your research and saying this really is top tier research, I think adds credibility to when you talk to other providers.
Did you apply before Rachel Goodman from Foley Lauder connected us? So that's another place where we get our applicants. A lot of the law firms send us really good applicants.
Yeah.
And Rachel Goodman from Foley Lauder down in Tampa, who's an excellent attorney and just a great person.
Yeah.
She connected us, but I wasn't sure if you applied.
So no, but I mean, it's almost embarrassing because I took this like online class of how to do an SBIR and I'm like, totally, I've got this. I'm like, running up to the last minute. I couldn't even figure out how to like log in that day to submit what I thought was an application.
Like it's
and
a
then
design
once
flaw.
Megan did it, I was like, I'm sorry, there were like 80 pages of just forms ahead of it. Like there was no way I was going to submit on my own. So it wasn't until we got like, people who actually knew what they were doing as well as guidance to really navigate it correctly.
Nice. So talk about what happens from here. You're waiting for FDA. Are you still doing clinical trials? Like what's next for you?
Yeah. So we're done with our clinical trial from a does the device work efficacy standpoint, but we are in like doing some trials of end-to-end testing to make sure like women really like it. Like for us, it's like I mentioned, every step matters. Obviously, the design of this to making sure you get an adequate sample that's comparable to what you're seeing with when a clinician collects it. But it's more like, again, we care about utilization, we care about adherence, we care about like when you get your results, did you understand them? Do you understand how to take action on them? Because today, 50% of women who have an abnormal result are not following up on the triage step in the next 12 months. So just that continuity of care really matters. So we're in that kind of testing, more about kind of like, how do we make sure everything's ready to go once FDA approval, once we get FDA approval?
Yeah. Are you thinking about the data flow of this information? Because you said, of course, that you're trying to fill a spot where there isn't access to care. But as you noted, like if this is available, there are a lot of women who do technically have access to care who would prefer this pathway, and they do have an OBGYN or they do have a primary care, a family care physician who is providing care, like getting those data to them.
Yeah, so we will partner with providers if they want to send it over. For us, it's more, when we look at it, it's more options to care, right? Unfortunately, I do think there are some women who have a great relationship with an OB-GYN and PCP, but what we're really noting is the reality is most people don't. Like there was a study that just came out that 72% of women have are behind. Or
Leslie
have been
does not
behind on
have
gynecological care.
an OBGYN.
Yeah. No, I mean, 1/3 of Americans. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
And I'm not a doctor, but I'm doctor adjacent.
Yep.
So
Doctor adjacent.
Yeah.
So are we.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, 1/3 of Americans don't have access to preventive care, and it doesn't have to do with insurance. It's just not. So I just think, yes, some people we might have to go that way, but I think the reality is most people just like aren't actually seeing doctors, and we're just going to increase access.
So what kind of impact do you expect to see with this? Like you mentioned, so many women don't get their follow-up care. Obviously, this would not be the follow-up care, but like what sort of outcomes are you working toward from a population level?
Yeah, so 1/3 of American or women are actually currently behind on their screening. It's
Leslie.
right. I'm actually not. Yes.
I'm not.
It's a huge issue during COVID and post-COVID.
Yes.
I didn't want to take it away from you, but that's a huge issue both during COVID and even after post-COVID.
Yeah.
Like look how long it takes for you to get a dental appointment now because everyone's everyone's going back to the dentist.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's just, so really we're just trying to close that
Dentist,
gap, right?
pap smear, same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Basically.
same metal tools, more or less, interchangeable, There's like an Instagram thing where it's like some guy's like, what is this? And like she hands it to her husband. He's like, I don't know, maybe something for the dentist, when he's like propping up with a speculum. So, not quite the same, but could be in a dire situation. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't even remember the question.
Just in general, like what kind of outcomes do you expect to see as this technology is deployed?
So it's more about increasing screening, right? Screening rates. So 1 in 3 women are behind. And as you guys just said here, like I think there's a lot of assumptions we make about who's behind, right? And rural is definitely an issue. But when we looked at our data, so our clinical trial and data is over 800 women, and no matter who you were, all walks of life. So we made a really concerted effort to map to the population of the US, both in terms of ethnicity and socioeconomic and education, all of it. It did not matter. Like whether you were like high school educated or college degree, more than 1 in 4 would be higher in their screening, whether you are high income or low income or more than 1 in 4. Obviously, if you're uninsured, the rate's like 40%, but it did not matter. Like you were always 24% or above. And so it really is a problem that's affecting everyone. And it's exactly what you were saying, Michael, where it's just, do you have a job? Realistically, not even, so if you don't have a job, maybe you don't have insurance, you can afford it. If you do have a job, you don't have time, right? Like the simple reality is we don't have time to be doing this. And especially if you're a parent, I just sort of feel like, especially like flu and cold season, everyone's been to the doctor 6 or 7 times already this year. It just hasn't been for you, right? It's for your kids. You're
Yeah.
always putting someone else first. And so I just think it's closing that gap is
But also
really
there
where the
aren't
focus.
OBGYNs. Like
There aren't. And PCPs, back to like, no one's really upset. Like OB-GYNs are like, hey, I need to be delivering babies. I need to be doing surgeries. I need to be doing like higher value services. And then PCPs were like, this used to happen with OB-GYNs. Like, I don't want to do it if I didn't have to do it because I also only have 20 minutes to cover your entire body, your entire year. Like you're putting too much in here. So we actually don't get met with much resistance. Everyone's like, I agree, they would want it. And then it's a grade A preventive screening. So it should be covered with no cost sharing to the patient. So
Very
it's just kind of like a win-win.
It's very cool.
That's our hope.
That's actually a really important point, is that yes, this is supposed to be a covered, included screening, but it is in that space where you do the screening and then you move right into something that costs money when you do follow up. Tell him to turn off his phone.
Michael, Joe
Michael,
told you to turn
the
the
sound off.
I just did. That's why I was like,
Oh, okay. And keep going.
But I'm interested obviously for you to get this to market, but then I'm really interested in the follow-up pieces that either come through some kind of innovation, whether it is a care coordination platform of some sort or some kind of other thing you do, because the follow-up piece is expensive and it's follow-up, which always falls off.
Yes, yes. So I think part of it is people don't even know what they're supposed to do next, right? Like when I remember one time, like early days, just asking some of my neighbors, and they're all like educated women. And they're all like, oh, I have high risk HPV. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry, you have it or you had it? And they're like, oh, I guess I don't know. And I was like, okay. So like here, their doctor never explained that like, it's very normal to have high risk HPV, but we track it, right? Which is part of the triage. Like if you're not clearing it, then it's a problem. But like they really didn't know, right? And so I just think like part of the triage problem is like no one's really made it clear. We need to follow this every year. Or this is 16 and 18. You need to be going to a colpo, but a colpo is like, here's what you can expect in it. Don't be scared about it, but here's why it's important. Like cervical cancer is like nearly entirely preventable with screening and early treatment. So it's like, it shouldn't be a scary thing if you just go in, right? So I think there's a piece of that. And then also to your question, sorry, I'm like, we saw this with colorectal screening where as you took out all of the triage, people followed up with the triage. Sorry, took it out in terms of being preventive care. You didn't have to pay out of pocket for it. And that's what we need to start doing with cervical cancer. It's still not there. So the screening is covered with no cost sharing. If you follow up for the colpo, it's not, right? It's a problem.
I just want to be clear, but just people who weren't born with female parts. A colpo is a colposcopy. It's when they like burn off or scrape off.
Well, the colpo itself is actually just looking at the cells, but quite often they will do a biopsy or a lesion.
Yeah. And so it's another thing that can happen. It's not great. It's not a great experience, but it is important, and it is part of actually preventing development of really serious cancer that will kill you.
Yes, yes. I mean, cervical cancer, back to like innovation, we're not actually very good at treating cervical cancer. We're really good at preventing cervical cancer. So it's way better to catch early, and then you can just shave off the cells, and it's, it won't turn lethal. But if it's caught too late, we're not particularly good at it. It's not like breast cancer where we have a lot more treatments.
There's actually something else interesting you said that I think we should talk about, which is the pathway of moving some of these screening things into the recommendations of the U.S. Preventative Health Services Task Force, because that moves into that pushes innovation forward. Because like you said with colonoscopies, you then push people to say like, okay, we actually are going to cover this follow-up treatment, and therefore you can do more innovation in that area.
Yeah. And one, thank you for bringing that up. Maybe you did or did not know, but
We didn't know anything.
yeah, exactly. It kind of shows. I'm just kidding.
No prep. No prep.
Not getting invited back. It's okay.
I kind of like it.
She likes to be nagged.
I'm kidding. But the USPSTF just launched their draft and like changes for cervical cancer, and they added patient collect, which is what this is, or clinician collect. And then when you like read in a little bit, so like primary HPV is the preferred, either patient collect or clinician collect. Alternatives to that would be a pap smear or a co-test. And then as you like read in a little bit further, they say patient collect increases screening rates, but only when done at home. So like they
Not
are
in the
already
car.
not in the car. Oh yeah, shoot. Yeah, not in the car. We'll have that. We'll do the little study and
See
then
what
we'll be like, it
happens.
turns out the car is actually incredibly important too.
be.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is, it's just like they are pushing it, and because insurance doesn't cover stuff or guidelines, people will follow the guidelines. So it's been super awesome. And the American Cancer Society, I believe, deserves a lot of credit here. They teamed up to create the Cervical Cancer Roundtable with the Biden Cancer Moonshot, all with the idea of like, let's make sure we're prepared as soon as this stuff comes through. And so self-collect in clinic has already come out with both Roche and BD, but it's still in clinic. We'll be the first to hopefully bring it home.
This is really cool. Okay, you want to
Yeah. So tell our loyal fans, there's so many of them, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. So you did mention that the process was a little tricky for you to kind of
Oh, yeah,
apply to NIH, and you did this online course, but that it turns out lawyers are important.
Yeah, yeah.
What advice would you give companies that were, years ago, similar to you, trying to start this process?
Yeah, so I would definitely. So I feel like we got great counsel from Michael. I feel like reaching out to you guys. You guys are like, you're not open for business. You want a lot of calls. He gets
Well,
a lot.
no,
Of,
it's
he
just-
gets a lot of text messages.
Yeah, like I think one of the things is
Yeah,
I think one of the things I helped, me and my colleague from NCI
Yeah.
helped you with is how to play the game, the grant game.
yeah.
Where to put your cards on the table,
Yeah.
and where to strategically figure out where to put your efforts.
Yeah, and I think you guys are more friendly than I think. It's like it's black boxy in terms of where's your score going to get and who's grading you, but like you guys are available to help people navigate and try to access this money. And I think like prior to meeting you, I would have thought like we can't reach out to them. You just submit a form.
So
and
scary.
really, yeah, you guys are super approachable and helpful.
We want to fund good companies. Like my colleague at NCI, like we talked every 2 weeks just to kind of, because her application was with NCI
Yeah.
to see, how to support you. But following up with the program officer is like super important because it's, we want to make sure we do want to help and fund good science. Our mission is funding the best science. And I couldn't have been happier that you got a direct phase 2.
Yeah. And I think it's like little, and then we've had some grant consultants along the way. And I think they all are helpful in different ways. Some are more in just like, hey, there's 80 pages of forms that you need to fill in that are quite helpful and you need to know about. And then others were smaller things. Like we're a tiny team, as I mentioned, like Megan and Trina are like superstars, but we work with a bunch of other people, right? And with our first application, we just kind of listed our core team. But then with the second, we got some advice to be like, oh, list every single person that you're engaging with. And that's where you saw like, oh, wow, like these guys are like, they're connected with the leaders in Australia. They're connected with like the leaders at the, Cervical Cancer Roundtable. Like we've actually gotten all the right people around the table. They're not full-time employees, or they're not going to necessarily be like PIs on this, and then I think that added a lot of credibility too.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Teal, where can our loyal fans find more about this incredible device, which will come to market soon?
So getteal.com is the website. And again, like it's Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. So as much as we can't wait to be in the market, it's too important to wait. So get screened, even the old school way. Or maybe you could be part of our clinic, our new trial. Yeah. When you want to do that first, I think it knows we have a pretty big market size opportunity here. But yeah, so get screened just in general. But as soon as we're through, we'll be launching first in California and then roll across the rest of the country.
Awesome. I'm raising my hand
Yeah.
from California.
Yeah,
I live here. Yeah, in Marin County here.
Yeah.
Perfect.
we go.
Awesome. Great to meet you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming
Awesome
on.
to meet you.
Thank
Yeah.
you for taking the
Thanks,
break.
meeting
you. Thank you for bringing your device.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
That was
2 for 2. 2 for 2, Commander. We're
These
into
are
it.
like good guests.
2 for 2. All right.
Look at Joe. Joe is
New
so
guest
fast.
coming on.
Oh my gosh.
Joe is
We're ready.
managing the
Oh, is she
green
nervous? Oh, she might be nervous.
That's okay.
Ah,
We may be live.
Does she need a minute?
Oh,
Okay. She.
damn it.
Anyway, the point. Lisa's got a Tesla alert. We don't know what's going on here. Might be
Can
a
someone
problem.
please stop trying to break into my Tesla? Thank you.
No one's breaking into my Tesla. That's
wonder
all I
if
gotta
you
say
could
about
put
that.
phone away Yeah. Right. Oh, let's talk about
My
Waymo.
Tesla drives itself.
While she's waiting, let's tell you about Waymo. How I got stuck in a Waymo today.
Oh,
Already.
want to hear more.
And I should know better is really what it comes down to, because we have already had this happen. in the world that
Within
got stuck
24
in one.
hours,
Come in,
Lisa
come in.
convinced me that Waymos were amazing, and then
And then I
convinced me that
immediately
they're
got
horrible.
stuck in one.
So
So
it really
AI is still questionable, everyone. Okay.
All right, we have our last guest,
Yes.
Annalisa. You should introduce yourself because I could not read your last name on Joe's placard.
We are sharing the
So cute.
It is cute.
It's like a little Einstein.
Yep, adorbs.
I'm Annalisa Samara, CEO of Reyes.
Rayos, awesome. So tell us what you do.
So Reyes is a medical device company. We make wearable diagnostics. I have one right here.
I love all these
Tell?
Oh my gosh.
So amazing.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
the device. That's the device. So we detect the flow within things. So think of things like blood, lymph, and we're starting with cerebrospinal fluid in a condition called hydrocephalus, which is characterized by excess fluid on the brain. So people with hydrocephalus are typically treated with something called a shunt, and that shunt drains the brain of the excess fluid.
Where does it go?
It starts in the ventricles,
Okay.
makes its way down the neck, and over the clavicle and goes into the abdominal region where it
Where's the
drains.
shunt actually placed?
Oh, so it's placed in the ventricles within the brain. So everyone
Imagine
here,
my brain here.
so
Yes.
everyone here and everyone, in the internet land, has
Millions.
millions and
Millions of
millions.
fans.
They have ventricles and they make CSF, but for about 1 million Americans, they just make too much of it.
Mm.
So these shunts are placed invasively, so surgically, and it drains the brain of the excess fluid. But the problem is these shunts are not perfect. They're prone to failure. And when patients when they have failure, they exhibit non-specific symptoms, so headaches, dizziness, and nausea. So they have to go to the emergency room, and imaging is used for that, and which is time consuming. So, oftentimes it's just a stomach ache or a headache or that sort of thing. But for hydrocephalus patients, it's just like it could be a life or death situation. So we use our device, we place it on the skin. It's completely non-invasive, and we can detect the flow within a matter of minutes.
Awesome.
One patient population that I hear has a high hydrocephalus rate is pediatrics.
Oh yes.
So I think I really love the device because, kids can't always communicate symptoms. And this is
Yes.
a great diagnostic to let parents know how to act upon this issue.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like you said, we have a lot of nonverbal patients in our studies. This affects the pediatric population greatly because especially the babies. It's hard to tell if a cry is just a cry,
Right.
if they're hungry, or if they're having a shunt failure. So we've met so many families. Our devices have been on over 300 patients to date, most of which are kids, little
Wow.
babies. So looking
That's
to bring
awesome.
it to the market this year.
Very
This
cool.
year.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so that's your your first use case.
Yeah, that's our first use case.
But you mentioned you can monitor the flow for many things.
For many things. So maybe just to give you a brief background on the technology, I licensed it at Northwestern University out of Professor John Rogers' lab. He's a world-renowned material scientist, makes a bunch of wearables, has deals with Gatorade, Chevron, that sort of thing. So we can detect the flow, within things. So we're starting in hydrocephalus. It was actually clinician-driven. A neurosurgeon.
They were asking
They were asking for it when Dr. Rogers was giving a grand rounds talk in the neurosurgery department at Northwestern.
That's pretty freaking cool.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
What are the other what are the other potential use cases in the future? Just
Yeah.
just blue sky. Like what else could you do with this?
No problem. So I get that question asked all the
Yeah.
time. And this is, a great lead into the NIH. So we are actually recently awarded by the National Institute of Aging for monitoring wound care.
Wow.
So for chronic
Very
wounds.
cool.
Yeah. So we're looking at that. We're also looking at different, types of blood flow and different indications, but I just received that funding recently. But we're also funded by the NINDS for hydrocephalus. I'm very thankful for them.
Awesome. So talk to us about the whole NIH journey.
Oh, I love the NIH. And I'm not saying that because Michael's here. I mean,
I mean, you're on the special NIH talk show.
If I could say something, she has applied to my institute and she got scored very well, but she's a great example of how we worked with her company. And I said, you should look at this product for rural populations. We looked at Puerto Rico, and these are populations experiencing health disparities where this infrastructure is helping open up access and increase health knowledge. So, but yes, you have quite a journey, and I love that like the first time you got funded? You found out you got funded, like you were like, you didn't think it was like possible.
Yeah, I didn't think it was possible. So the NIH journey was such a long one for us. But I'm no stranger when it comes to SBRs and you know, the NIH. I've been working with you know, within the SBRs since like 2004. When I
wow.
was working with VCs, and my boss told me to go figure out SBIRs. So I checked out a workshop not once, not twice, but 3 times, because it was like a huge data dump for a young associate to like figure it out.
That's why I told her she
keep
watched
hearing
just
this one.
one. She did one course and it was not enough.
I did 3 workshops, and they kind of figured it out and helped a bunch of companies. And then, you know, when I came through this in 2019, before I even started, I'm like, we have to apply for SBIRs. We absolutely have to. So that's kind of when the journey started. We, you know, applied for a fast track with the NINDS. We didn't get it the first time, but that's how this thing goes. I mean, the same thing goes for like diluted financing. And then we applied again, didn't get it the second time. We went for a really big fast track for you know, $4 million. So, you know, there's lots of, you know, swings at that.
And just to clarify, fast tracks is where you get phase 1 and phase 2 together. And they are, a lot of people come to us and they think like they've got the best idea ever. And it is, they're going to get a fast track. Fast tracks are extremely hard to get.
Super hard. Michael's right. It's super hard to get. You know, we didn't get it the first 2 rounds, but we're like, you know, we got to keep doing this. So, you know, the feedback from the NIH was great. I think feedback's wonderful. We just got better, and then we applied the 3rd time, and I got a call from the program officer. You know, and he's just like, because, you know, I was getting advice on how to make the application better. He gave me a call, and it was really hard because, you know, we were doing this like during COVID. You know, so every day I was like raising money, looking for money, whether it's non-dilutive or dilutive. And then my program officer called me. He's just like, you know, hey, I know I don't ever call you, but I just want to share the news that you're gonna get funded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and waterworks start now. I lost it. I lost it. I really did, because
couldn't even go to the bar because it was COVID.
yeah, right, exactly. Because fundraising, you know, in this space is completely underserved. There's so many people that don't know what hydrocephalus is, and it's so hard to get investors on board where they just say, well, you know, can you get? It's too small of a market. Like they don't care. That sort of thing.
They're worried
Yeah.
about market,
Yeah,
worried about revenue,
Exactly.
which I am also.
Yeah.
But like I am starting to appreciate this NIH thing here.
Worried about Tim?
I'm always worried about
Tim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, I mean, these are you know, I think underserved markets, whether it's you know, because of racial background or their clinical background. I mean, they deserve innovation too.
Yeah.
So is that why you chose? Because you came from the VC world, you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So because I think something that's confusing for a lot of startups is, do I go after this or do I go after traditional VC funding
Yeah.
or whatever? So can you explain what that? Because it sounded like you immediately knew you wanted to
You
go.
knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think, so I'm a mentor for a lot of startups and different groups, and I get asked all the time, should I go for,
Yeah.
non-dilutive or dilutive financing? And I say, you go for both, actually.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Yeah.
go for both,
Go
loyal
for
fans.
both.
Go for money.
You know,
Go for money.
Go for both. I mean, you can't, it's difficult to get, funded, whether it's dilutively or non-dilutively the first time around.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to put, from a grant perspective, to put, a pen to paper, your ideas on paper. Because to me, no grant effort is ever wasted, whether you get funded or not.
Yeah.
You reuse that content for, investor material, for, sending over executive summaries, putting together your pitch decks. It's not wasted effort at all. And I think, you just get, better over time. So I always tell companies, you go for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. And so in general, it sounds like one of the reasons NIH funding has been so valuable to you is because you're focused on this more, we shouldn't call it a niche market, but I think for general VC community, it
Smaller
is.
TAM.
We don't take any equity either, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a grant.
So this enabled you to really focus on an high need population,
Mhm.
typically underserved,
Mhm.
and you don't have to focus on investor returns right away.
But also this is going to be
This also appears
Hopefully.
innovative.
but it's also going to be used for other use cases. Hopefully.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Other TAMs.
Yeah.
That's right.
So many TAMs.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, there's huge platform market opportunity. We're starting with, hydrocephalus and now looking at other things like wound care. But, to Mike's point on, the no dilution part, they don't take, equity. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
It also worked really well when I was, raising my dilutive financing to get that, NIH, kind of check mark seal of approval. I mean, these are like, it's peer reviewed. The scientific community, put a green light on it. So that really helped us with our fundraising, both in our seed round and our Series A, especially the big grants that we got. It went a long way.
There's been times where I've had VCs call me and someone's gotten a pretty good score. It's just, I don't cut the checks. I'm like waiting for my institute director to find out if they want to fund them, but I'll walk through the 5 areas that you get reviewed on. And, that's often helpful for them to understand like how we evaluated you, because it just shows the maturity of the company. And but also shows that like you have a strategic vision of where you want to go.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this because, again, you do the Diversity Inclusion Fund,
Mhm.
and he mentioned that he talked to you guys about the
Yeah.
rural and Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So, because there's obviously multiple NIH funds,
Yeah.
how did you choose which one you wanted to go after, and how did you have to change your model a little bit to make sure that you fit the dynamic that was required for this one?
And just a correction, it's not DEI, it's health disparities, which are people that need research and health access. Yeah, it's okay. I just had to correct.
It honestly sounds like
We don't
Wesley
prep.
which is kind of bad because she's our guest host. Whatever.
Yeah, that's hallmark of our show is we just show up. So, but this has been this.
I feel like I do that also.
We're
I just
always
show up.
surprised and shocked, and this has actually been really,
That's
really
great.
cool. Yeah, totally into it. But yeah,
Mhm.
anyway, the question I kind of forgot what it
Health
was.
disparities.
Yeah, what?
Yeah. So, I actually, met Mike at a panel that I was, doing for the NIH. So at the time, we were funded exclusively by the NINDS, which is the, Neuro Institute. And I was telling Michael about the technology, and then he said, "Well, have you thought about bringing this technology to, underserved markets like, Puerto Rico or Guam or Hawaii?" And I was just like, this light bulb moment. Like when I'm like, that is such like a fascinating use case. Like,
Yeah.
and so, we did this 9-center study in mainland US, like from UCSF to Duke, that, I never really thought about bringing this to, other parts of the US. And I just thought it was such a brilliant idea. Because in Puerto Rico in particular, all the pediatric neurosurgeons are in San Juan.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
if
yeah.
there's an emergency, they have to go see if you're on the other side of the island, you got to drive to San Juan. And can you imagine if you have to go to San Juan if your kid has a stomach ache and you're like on the other side of the island?
Yeah.
It's terrible. So what we want to do is deploy our devices to clinics and other parts of Puerto Rico, so it's just easier for access to care. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. In talking with Dr. Estranza, who is a pediatric neurosurgeon in San Juan, he said that he would love this idea if we brought it to Puerto Rico, because a lot of his patients don't come in when they need to because they're too far. So
Yeah.
access to care
right.
is such a problem in Puerto Rico, and hopefully we can, bring our technology there and help solve that problem.
Very
That's awesome.
cool. Well, and we only have a few minutes left, but I'm interested too. And how did you get into this? Because you said you were in the VC world. And then, so what happened?
Yeah. So I've only done startups like my whole life. So I started off.
God bless you.
But that's all I know is all I know is startups. So I did tech transfer, and then I went into venture capital, and I did that for about 4 years. I co-managed a life science portfolio, but I felt like I was saying no more than adding value to my portfolio. Right. So I killed so many deals. Right. That was like my thing. Like, not my thing.
She
but
loves
it's something
killing
I had to
deals.
do. But I'm like, what if I took that time saying no and like actually added value to my portfolio companies? So I left and I became an independent consultant to a number of those companies that we funded, and I helped them with SBIRs, helped them with fundraising. I did a little bit of everything. So, for about 14 years or so, I worked with a bunch of startups, and as a consultant. But I was also on the management team. I led regulatory, quality, clinical finance. I did whatever the startup wanted me to do. And then in 2019, I was approached by this professor at Northwestern who wanted me to take a look at his SBIR grant. And if it was this, a platform technology, it already had 2 published papers with clinical data. And I said, Dr. Rogers, who's running this company? And he's like, well, no one right now, because it was academically founded.
Yeah.
So by a professor, a neurosurgeon, and a postdoc at MIT. And I'm like, you know what? I'm interested. So it was at that moment where I dropped everything. I dropped my clients. And, I had just had my second baby. And then
Drop the baby.
I didn't know. No, I dropped my clients. I had my second baby.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And then I also closed in my new home, and I'm like, I'm going all in, right? So I went all in, and
awesome.
it's be 6 years this year. And it's great. So I was employee number 1, built the team to 15. We're adding more people, I would say that the NIH, they were like our very like earliest dollars, and I'm like so thankful for them because they put money in our company when no one else would at the time, because they're just like, what's hydrocephalus, or like, you don't have enough data, that sort of thing. The NIH realized that this is a very underserved population, and we've gone such a long way. Again, over 300 patients had used this. We've had more published data. I grew the team out. And now, actually, today we're moving into our new space. We have a 7,200 square foot lab and office space that we're moving into, so creating more jobs in Chicago. Yeah, that's right.
Best pierogies.
Yeah. But super thankful for NIH.
Nice. Well, I have to say, Michael, I'm convinced.
Yeah,
I'm feeling.
You did a good job.
Yeah, this is
You,
a pretty
we
good
got some
showing
good companies here.
as to why. I mean, the NIH's sort of baseline of scientific research and researchers is critically important. It feels like you couldn't do this kind of work without that baseline of research and researchers to provide the legitimacy and also understand, like, what are they trying to get funded, and does it have a platform basis? Is it valid? Is it going to work? Right? Like, does it have a chance of working? Does it have a chance of being successful? And so obviously, I was already a supporter, but I'm more of a supporter now.
Yeah, and we didn't talk like super hardcore about commercialization of any of these companies, but all of them, like, I think they're going to work.
Are moving towards it. Feeling
Like,
good about it.
I think they'll make money,
Feeling good about it.
which is how I think things work. Well, so from Annalisa, any other comments for our millions of loyal fans?
How can they find you?
Yeah.
Yep. So, visit our website, www.raeos.com. That's RHAEOS, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Annalisa Somera.
I can't spell her company either.
Michael has never spelled Insena correctly.
Find us, and for those out there that are considering SBIRs, just do it. I talk with companies all the time. They say, "Oh, it's going to take me so long to do this." I'm like, "That's fine, because someone else is going to get your money. It could be me, right? So, like, that's great.
It could be me.
It could be me, or it could be her. It could be her." So, I say just do it. And again, no grant effort is ever wasted, whether or not you
That
get
is good
funded.
advice. That's good advice.
Yeah,
Love it.
Thank
Well,
you
and then
so
one more
much.
question for Commander Michael Banyas. Annalisa was saying you rarely get it on the first round, the first application. What's the average number that, just to level set for all of our loyal fans?
2 or 3.
Okay.
But just if I can, that's one of the reasons why you should reach out to your program officers or like the program directors, or managers like myself, because it's all about where you're going to ask those small research questions, how to refine them, working with our scientific staff, and our counterparts there, so that you can help put your best foot forward, so that our bosses can fund the best science.
This has been a very serious and real episode
Yeah.
of the Health Tech Talk Show.
Very unusual.
Legitimately awesome companies
Very
and
cool
really
guests.
interesting idea. This has been very real. Don't worry, everyone. We actually have a show coming up on Friday where we will be
We
back
will,
to
and
our
we will
normal
be
selves.
cursing and likely
We will
drinking.
be cursing. We will be
Yes.
drinking all the things. It is the day before my birthday, so you can definitely all celebrate.
We'll see what happens.
And don't worry, we'll be back. This has been actually like incredibly interesting. And
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
interesting companies.
Great
Like,
job.
how
Like,
close.
we'd
legit.
do this again.
Yeah. Surprisingly, we would do this again, Michael. We're interested.
All right.
Nice stuff.
With that,
Leslie, send off our loyal. Leslie, send off.
don't go to the dentist. Stay away from the dentist.
Get your screenings.
We'll tell you afterwards.
Get your
All right.
cancer screenings, everyone. Bye.
Bye, y'all.